So Carolyn, I'm just going to just give you a really quick peek at the situation. We've got a lot of money for signage, just woods education, and to pull off this sensory trail. So right here, connected to the buffer project, I'm envisioning some kind of a sign that's describing it on one side, with another probably watershed map, and just helping everybody to understand what is happening with the stormwater coursing from Morrisville across our farm down to the stream. So this was designed, it has pea gravel for wheelchair use. Obviously we've got a lot of cleanup to do. We have an ADA compliant bridge for wheelchairs, and here's our lovely creek. There could even be some kind of water related, just thinking about, critters that live in the water, the salamanders and crayfish. Okay, so the trail will be widened and smoothed and with pea gravel. So that's going to be professionally done. There's a little bit of a dip. It's very beautiful here. Usually what I do before I head into the woods with a group is look over at the pasture together and just share with them, or just wonder, if we stop mowing the grass, what would happen, in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years, like what would happen if we just left it alone? And so we get all kinds of guesses, and then we turn to the woods. And I just say, give it 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, this is what you get. This is what the world, nature wants to actually be wild. And so anyway, just saying that's what I generally do as I head into the woods. Okay, so we've just come to a fork in the road here. And there are these lovely spice bushes. There's a whole bunch of them here. And so the spice bush stop is the first stop on the sensory trail. And so, crushing the leaves and smelling the leaves, for many, many months, these have very aromatic leaves. Not all the time. Probably not the early spring, but I would say late spring, summer, and early fall, before the leaves fall off. So then there's a picture of the butterfly who depends on the spice bush for its food, and talking about native plants, and a chance to just smell this unbelievable, wonderful, kind of orangey, spicy smell. So that is stop one, thinking about butterflies and migration and all that, and using your nose. Okay, so here's the beginning of what we want to turn into a sensory trail. So it's just very, very beautiful grove of trees, and we are going to have a chance to explore different kinds of trees with small signs, and eventually we'll have a collection of the seeds of each of the trees, and a leaf that is in relief on a board, so they can really feel the shape of the distinct shape of each tree. So that we've got a lot of sweet gum around here. That might be a good place to start. So this one is particularly bumpy, although I have to say, as I've taken this path with others, we've actually started here, although this tree doesn't look all that healthy, but this is a maple. So we've actually started with one that's fairly smooth, and then we come to this young oak tree, which has super different kind of leaves, and then we've come to this sweet gum This is kind of a medium-sized one, and this really big one is so interesting because of these sort of buttresses at the bottom. And you would think that the whole forest was just covered with nothing but sweet gums because the seeds are just everywhere. And so again, at each of these different trees, and then across here, let's see, right up here is the smoothest bark that they'll find, which is the beech. And probably this one over here is the best one. So this one is the absolute smoothest. So, you know, just really using tactile, and then also being able to feel in whatever way teachers such as yourselves would think would be the best way to experience the leaf shape. You know, oversized, I would think, and either as a relief, or it could be something loose that they can hold and feel all around. You know, we could actually cut one out of wood and sand it real smooth. So they would see how the seeds are different, the bark is different, and the leaves are different. So then, oh my goodness, you know what? Because I am mindful that I can only download a video of a certain length. I actually meant to mention a fern stop, and that one isn't necessary, but it's so pervasive here. So I was actually going to do that before all these little tree stops. So you do the spice bush and then the ferns, because you're literally just surrounded by them. And the cool thing about the ferns is the fiddlehead, and that it unfurls in a spiral, and that we would do a relief of a spiral, and we would throw Fibonacci on there, because this trail is really going to definitely educate all kinds of people. Just anyone would learn and have their senses raised, heightened, and appreciate the woods through this walk. Okay, so ferns, trees, and then we're thinking about the life cycle of the tree. Now obviously there's just a lot of clearing, but not a whole lot of like saplings that are in the way, but just a lot of trail stuff. So this incredible tree would be the next stop. It's very long. Now it won't be with us forever, but it is really impressively long. So when we just imagine it standing, it would have just towered over us. And so we simply just roll along the log. You know, it's just the path just impresses us that, wow, this is an incredible tree. And then, you know, there's just other ones we can drag over too when this one goes back to the earth. But we'd have this for a couple years. So this would have to be trimmed. But it brings you to an awesome stump. And there would be a sign. And also, God, I would love to keep this incredible native magnolia here. An awesome stump you know, we've just touched all these live trees that are hard, but this is just so soft. You know, when a tree is at the end of its life, all of its goodness goes back to the earth. And so we might have a puzzle, a life cycle puzzle that they have to put together of a seed and a sapling and a mature tree and then the dead tree in the stump. And even over here, so this little sapling would come out. These little saplings would have to come out. But this is so cool that it'll be here for a while with the lichen. And so just sort of surveying the scene here, we'd go along this tree, which snapped off. Look at that, some windstorm. Incredible. So that's another thing to just note. These two rocks just happen to be here. So if one of them was moved and we took this sapling out, then they could actually roll between these two really cool rocks and feel both of them. So then we come around the corner and we come to a tree with a really cool hole in it, which gives us an opportunity to think about critters who live here in their homes. And I'd say the featured animal would be deer, because we have antlers that they could feel. And we would have like a sand tray with little stamps for tracks. You know, they could just like clear the sand, make it smooth, and then they could see like the tracks of the deer, of mice, of raccoons, you know, just any other critter. Even a snake could slither through there, and they could just see that aspect of the animals. But I meant to mention that I'd like to use QR codes whenever we think it could enhance something, but it would definitely enhance the animal stop, because there could be a QR code that you could pick up with your phone and then actually see an animal moving. And we would arrange the display board either by, like, you know, have nocturnal animals or predators, or we just have to think of a sensible way of organizing, you know, the critters. But that's that stop. There's a little bit of a dip here, and then finally coming over here and thinking about birds. So I think we would just roll. We have to do some trimming and some clearing of these branches, but you know, I haven't quite figured out the best spot for the birds. But the same thing with a sign with like 10 or 12 common birds, the beautiful pictures, and then QR codes so that you would be able to see them flying. You could learn a little bit about them, tiny little, you know, 1 minute little videos. There would be a bucket with feathers, a bucket with nests, and that's probably the last stop. And so then we would just basically come back. This is actually where we do fort building with camp. So I don't want to encroach, you know, too much further that way. So they would just come back out to the main trail and take it back. So we would have the special surface, you know, like with the pea gravel, basically up until here. So that's the loop. The loop would have all those stops. Now, we could have some kind of a table you could pull up in your wheelchair to make fairy houses. There could be something like that. But Carolyn, that's my thoughts. And mostly I need advice about, you know, the kinds of things that somebody might be lift a door for information, open a box to make discoveries, something that they might turn. And then, of course, like we looked up Sensory Trail in Doylestown. There's one that the same organization who funded this one, and it's like not a trail, it's just like a playground, and they have a tic-tac-toe, and they've got drums you can hit and stuff like that. And so we're happy to incorporate anything that makes sense. But I just wonder what your thoughts are about this presentation. And I have this Eagle Scout who is so talented. It was just delightful to meet him. He's been the head builder, and he sounds extremely gifted. And we've talked about lots of things. He could build the little boxes and stuff like that. We just have to design it fairly quickly, which I really want to. Like, I'm ready. I've thought about this quite a bit, but now it's just about figuring out specifically, you know, information that's enough and not too much, and finding images and going station by station and getting it done, kind of thing. So, but there's also, sorry, I keep going to my old bridge. There's also lots of other projects, like I need a wintertime home that's really better, almost like a small barn where I could house like ducks in one room and my goats in the other. He's really up for a project like that. He also, we looked at the structure in the middle of the playground. He said, I could totally build you something better than that. So I wish I could have him do everything, but I think the most tricky thing for me is this sensory trail and all these little exhibits. Okay, well, Carolyn, I've talked your ear off. I'm sorry. I'm probably going to have to bust this up into several pieces in order to get it to you, but thanks so much.